All right, you guys, I'm here with Patricia Avant, and she is a filmmaker or would you call yourself an experiencer? Like yeah, I would call you an
Yeah, that's the word I've been given. Yes.
Started using, yeah. So she's like a UFO experiencer, and she has a documentary out called People Do See UFOs, and it's about, I don't know how many, it's like 40 or something.
About 40, yeah.
About 40 videos, compilations that she's seen of these. I don't even know if you call them UFO. I mean, they are unidentified flying objects, but they're also not really ships as much as they are light beings or something.
Most people, or I think the term UAP fits them better, unidentifiable aerial phenomenon. UFO is looking for ships and aliens and extraterrestrials. And these may be some of those things, but we can't really pinpoint it as yet.
Okay, well, yeah.
A lot of names for
Exactly. And I mean, I've seen the documentary twice now, and I even feel compelled to, like, I'll be like, okay, I have number 1 through number like 30. I sit there and I write down what my impression of each one was. Like, I don't know why.
Look at that.
Yeah, but yeah,
it's a lot to take in.
It really is. At first, okay, so I'll just actually, how about this? Let's start with this. Explain, like, when this started for you and how you started filming these.
Started in 2016. I didn't film what I saw in 2016, but I stepped out on my patio after seeing this orange orb between 2 houses and looked to my left, and there were 4 of them just hanging there, just hanging, not much higher than the street light.
And how big were they?
They were not big at all. A gentleman, John, I was talking to, we thought about the fact that they were hanging in between these 2 houses, these 2 flat buildings in a field, and that if somebody had looked out of their window and saw that, it would have been, I don't know how to describe the size of it, because it was bigger than a tire, but not huge like you would think, and the 4 of them were just hanging there like it was no big deal. Like, yep, we're here. And I remember saying to somebody else, I wonder why at that time I didn't start screaming, oh my God, we're being invaded. We're being invaded. I just stood there, I called my son, and he came and looked, and we just tried to wrap our head around it. So later that year, 2016, he bought me a camera, this little duty. Can you see that?
Nice.
And it's not a big deal. It's just a Canon power shot. And he bought it because I like filming the moon. And then I got bored with filming the moon. I decided to see if I could even get a star in a good shot, a good clear shot. And the next thing I know, as I've been having it described to me, it's like they started performing for me. And then I was just obsessed with it every night for an entire year. I mean, I would get up in the morning and wait for them to show up at night. And when they did, I just started filming, and I would just film and pull them off my SD card and just film more, because they just were all over the place, and they were just every night, and
when I was looking at at first, like, I started to, like, around 19 is the one that you have that's from the day. You actually have them where they're not all at nighttime, like there is some during the day. And that's where I started going, like, wait, what? What is going on? Like, what is this, And so I'm wondering, how far zoomed in are you on these?
My camera zooms out to 200, and that's it. There are some points in the film where it looks like I'm zooming out further, but they're actually moving in. Whatever they are moving toward me. But the ones in the daytime is, in particular, just one star. It started showing up around maybe around May. Now, it might have been there all the time. I never saw it, but I look out my window one night and it would start around 5, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And it was just this huge, huge bright light. And it was so bright and so close that I said, well, is that a street light? But it was too high, you know, and that's the one. It just changes into everything from a beautiful, unbelievable bright light to something that looks like cottage cheese. That's where I can only describe it. The little square diamond shapes that they take, or the triangle shape. And then it took so many different shapes, but the most beautiful one is the one where it actually looks like, I don't know, like an angel or some kind of light being. Just, it's so bright and it's so beautiful.
See, but on my notes with yours, I have that. I have fairy, angel, like dancer. I have that for a couple of them because they do like they're not stationary. They move around. So
they're moving and changing shapes. And a lot of the ones on the documentary, I actually just took clips and put them in because some of the videos were 16 minutes long, just too long.
Right.
You know?
You just took the cream of the crop.
Yeah. So you can, I had started putting them up on YouTube now, the entire length, so that people could see this thing change 3, 4, 5, 6 times, you know, before it goes away.
So do you think that this is, so you're in Michigan, right? Like, yeah. Okay. So do you think this is connected to you?
I'm beginning to wonder. I have been asked that and told that, and a friend of mine, Wendy, she told me that I had somehow gotten on their vibrational frequency. And she says that it wouldn't matter if 10 people came and pointed their camera where I was, that they would not see the same thing.
So I also am, I guess you would call me an experiencer. The thing that would be closest to this for me is the Marfa Lights. I actually went out there and saw that, and they put on an hour show for me. And for me, I ended up at the end feeling like the light itself was intelligent.
Oh, without a doubt, they're not just some floating gas or anything. I know for certain, or I feel certain that these are entities of some sort, whether their outline is the ship, or the ship is hidden, or maybe they don't even need ships. You know, but I definitely feel that these are some types of entities. It wasn't until much later that I started to feel the possibility of them reacting to me. Prior to that, it was just me filming them doing their thing. And then one night I look out my window, and normally I would see 1 or 2, maybe stop, then maybe I'd see another one way up there and, you know, film it. But this particular night I looked out and there must have been about 12. Wow. And there was one very close and the others were kind of far away, and they were just going nuts. And I was filming left and right. And the larger one, that was the one where I always explained that it felt as if that one was looking back at me. That was the first time I kind of felt like anything was actually watching me as I was watching it. So
now, what year was that? Was that recent?
All of those were 2017. Everything on there, with the exception of the one at the end where it's hanging from the moon, that's 2019. That one. But all of the other ones are from 2017. I filmed for a year straight. And I probably would still have been filming, but we had to move. So, and where I moved them on the lower floor. And I just recently started to, I would see a star here or there, but it just wouldn't be, nothing would happen. And recently they started kind of, and actually the one I filmed the other night, I don't know if you saw that. I put it up.
I saw one on Twitter recently.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
I think that's the same one that hangs out under the moon. The one that was hanging from the moon, it reminds me of that one.
Okay, yeah, but this was, are you talking about the one that was by, like, you have a tree framing it?
No, this is the one, let's see, maybe one day last week, I was talking to one of my friends, and they said, well, okay, well, you need to go look now. But I actually got up to go lock the door to make sure the chain was on the door. And it was back there, and I filmed it. So I put it on YouTube, and I said, right now, and was trying to give people the direction where it was facing, because everybody wants to know that, but I don't know longitude from latitude and all of that stuff. And so I was trying to give them that, and it's kind of red. It was more oval shaped than the one that is hanging from the moon in the documentary, but it still reminded me of that one. It just kind of shows up, and it takes all the different shapes, and generally something, it's kind of I don't know how to describe that. It's a kind of a whitish thing that comes out of it. And then it goes back and it takes all these other shapes. And then it's a kind of a pinkish thing or reddish thing. People on Twitter said it was red, but it looked pink to me, more pink than red. So it's a strange thing. I don't know.
Whatever it is, I think they're all the same thing you're seeing. Like they're all related, but at the same time they're all different. Like you have different colors. It looks like they're different intensities of
light.
Differently different shapes. But it's like, when I was thinking about how I would define this, I tried to describe to my friend, like, who I was having on tonight, and I was like, yeah, she has all these videos of these light beings that she's captured that almost look like if you took a snippet of how the water reacts over a pool, at the top of a pool, how it does that. It almost looks like that to me in a lot of ways.
Well, they do look like they're in water, right? We mentioned to someone the other day that, maybe the sky is the ocean for them, because they do look like they're moving in water. But the strangest thing to me is, the only way I actually realized they were moving is if they were somewhere, I'm filming and a tree or something is in front of me and they're above it. And I started to be able to realize that they were moving because of the distance between, say, some branch or something else. Mm-hmm. But if you take your eye off of the camera, it's just sitting there.
Oh, okay. So if you look at them just with your naked eye.
When you look at them with your naked eye.
What do they look like? Do they just look like stars to you? Or?
They look like stars, because that's what my initial attempt was. I just wanted to see if I could film a star, if my camera was good enough to do that. And so I have one that I haven't put up yet that kind of illustrates what the things that are not stars look like, because I have one, it's got this bright light on it and I'm filming away. It didn't do any dancing, but I have, begun to understand that if I take those videos and tweak the light a little bit, 9 times out of 10, I'll see 10 other things, something. But sure enough, this one's got this one little ball of white light on it, twinkling away like a star, but it actually was just this big, huge rock looking thing. And but it was so dark that you couldn't see the outline of that. All I could see was the white, and that's the same thing with number 25. There's a line across it that looks like
it's funny, my stone, like my notes for number 25 was stone, in a figure lying on a boulder vehicle.
Right.
That's like what I thought. And
so initially all I saw was the line, and then all of the rest of that is hanging there. And it's just hard for me to believe that nobody else has seen these things. It's really hard for me. And I don't mean maybe us. I can't believe that some other astronomer has not seen some.
Well, you haven't gotten down the rabbit hole then, because there's a whole conspiracy about why that is. But I mean, but what I do find interesting is I had a, okay, in 2000, this would be 16. I
love your jacket and your background, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I didn't realize I was like matchy today, but thank you. Very related to this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had a friend over, and she's a total muggle, like doesn't believe in UFOs. Like,
Okay.
Anyway, I was watering plants like at 1 a.m, and I look up and I saw it looked like almost like a helicopter light. It was like super bright, and I thought it was just a plane, but then it disappeared and appeared right over here. And then I was like, what? And then it did this thing where it would like disappear and appear somewhere that it couldn't have traveled to. And it was dancing around the sky like that for like a good 5 minutes. So I didn't want to take my eye off of it because I didn't want to lose it. So I was screaming to my friend. I was like, get my phone, come out here, get my phone. But I wasn't going to like not look at it.
Right.
So she comes out there and she's just like, on her phone or whatever. And I'm like, look at this thing. I'm like, dude, look at what's doing it. And she like looks up and she's like, oh, cool. And I'm like, no, like, do you not see there's like a UFO? We're looking at a UFO right now. Look, there is a UFO right there. And she looks up and she was like, I don't see anything. And I'm like, you don't see the light right there. And she's like, oh, maybe it's just like a helicopter turning its lights on and off or something. I don't know. Here's your phone. And she goes back inside. And I was just like, her reaction to the entire situation amazed me more than the UFO. And I think like what I really have started to come to a conclusion of is, a lot of people do not care about this subject.
Oh, they don't. It's not a big deal to most people, I don't think. And I think the interesting thing, even with myself, is half of me wants them to do something, come down, come face to face, say something. And then, of course, the other half doesn't want that to happen because I don't want to, I don't know what you'll be coming face to face with, but no, there was, where did I see this information? I forget where I saw it, but I put it on Twitter, where they said that they did a short survey, and they surveyed 2,000 people, and all the men just about were interested in the UFOs. Only like 47% of the women were, just didn't care. I don't know. It's very interesting, that the vast majority of people do not care. In fact, I just was wondering, like, what do astronomers that go to school for that? What do they do? What are they looking for? They don't even, seem interested in finding that. But I think a lot of people have been convinced that they don't exist. So if they don't think it exists, they certainly can't see it.
Well, I find that bizarre, but I do know it's like they have a tendency, from my point of view, to have an explanation for everything. It's atmospheric distortion, or that's just, you're just seeing a plane. It's just a plane. It's just a satellite. It's just whatever. And even if you show them like plain, like in their face, it's who are you to show them? What are you, yeah. So,
my friend said, why did they choose you? That was what a friend of, she says, well, why do you think they chose you? You, like, really, like, who are you? What would they, what did they want to see you for? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, why not? Why?
Yeah, but I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's a weird type of thing. But even on Twitter, there's this, or not just Twitter, but I noticed that in a lot of the UFO documentaries, they're just talking about this disclosure and getting the documents and reading the documents over and over and over. And I realized when I was putting the documentary together, because I'd never done one, and I was just kind of trying to get an idea, that these guys have been talking about these documents for 40 years.
Yeah, or longer, since like Roswell, like you're talking about. Yeah, 80 years now. So you're kind of going, yeah, if people want evidence that something crazy is going on, there's evidence that something's crazy going on. But I think what you're also dealing with is a couple of things. One, they aren't coming down to the White House lawn, even though they have flown over the White House. So that is another thing. I think well, first of all, where I'm at on this whole journey, like I've been on the UFO journey since 2012.
Okay.
And at this point, I find a lot of like I don't mean to like be, I don't mean to offend anybody, but a lot of the geeky dudes on Twitter or something, they've never, a lot of them haven't experienced anything themselves, and they're very interested in like a military person's account of, you know, some actual Tic Tac UFO or something. I'm so bored of that UFO. There is, I'm more into, I've done a bunch of those CE5s where you call sort of them in or whatever.
Did anything happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen, I have a whole video about it on YouTube, but I haven't ever filmed it because a large part of it is kind of, I'm no longer at the point where I want to convince people that UFOs exist. I'm at the point where I internally want to figure out, is this a breakaway civilization like that exists underneath the oceans or something? Is this spiritual? Is it like fairy realm? Is it interdimensional? Are they always here? You know, I like, you don't have to convince me they exist anymore. Now I'm trying to figure out what exactly is going on.
What's the connection?
Yeah.
And I feel that way too. You know, I have some people on Twitter as well. You need to explain your camera and you need to explain the context in which you were doing this. And I'm just, the only context is that I was just filming. I saw them, I filmed, and that's what happened. And I'm no longer trying to convince anybody either, you know, and somebody looks at anything that I've filmed and thinks it's a flying seat cushion, well, so be it. You know what I mean? And I don't feel like I have to explain anything to anybody. I'm not an astronomer. I cannot tell you the longitude and latitude of every star. I have no idea, other than the Big Dipper. I could not tell you which direction, where I was looking, because I never in a million years, first of all, thought I would film so many that even now, as I'm going through them, I see ones that I don't remember. I haven't put them all up because there's so many of them. And never in a million years did I think this was going to end up with me talking to you.
Right.
Or anybody for that matter, you know? So I don't feel any obligation to explain anything, but of course I'm not going to be rude about it. I'll tell them what I can, but I'm not going to start making up stuff, you know, that somebody came and that didn't happen. You know, what happened is what you see. And some of them were so beautiful, they make me want to cry just thinking about them. And some of them were so hard to film, but then all of a sudden they kind of made themselves available for me. The red ones are super hard to film. They just blink and blend in with the night. But then one night I was filming one and it was all triangle, you know, and all I saw was this ruby red flickering, just way up so far. I thought I will never be able to get that. And I did. And I don't know why.
Well, so do you feel, do you have a sense of, you know, like I know, for me, I can almost know whether or not I'll see one that night. Like I took a whole month in October of 2020, and I looked every night. I was in Mexico. I was down in Puerto Escondido, Mexico, and I was doing the CE5 protocol, and I was staying in an Airbnb that I was the only person in this building. and the rooftop I had access to. So I would go out near the beach every night on a rooftop looking specifically for UFOs. And like what my personal protocol would be was I would meditate for a little bit, and then I would kind of just explain that I'm not going to hurt them, and that I just want to see them, and that and like why I wanted to see them. And I saw a bunch of crazy cool stuff. But a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to call in demons, and this is, that's horrible. And
well, that's not altogether that's possible.
Well, there is that too, but I also feel like you can call in the wrong thing if you're in the wrong vibration. I have that sense.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I kind of elevated my vibration when I would see them. But what I was going to say is I would know the nights I was going to see something before I could see. I just had a tingly sensation. I would know, okay, tonight I'm going to see something. And then the times where I was kind of feeling, nah, I just knew I wouldn't see something, and I didn't see anything. So do you have that feeling?
I have this thing where there's no tingling or anything like that. And at that time, in 2017, I was just getting up every day, every night to do it. So I wasn't waiting for them to show up or make me feel anything. There wasn't a night that I didn't see something, Here lately, I don't know if it's not a sense of anything, but I have, because they started showing up again, I do now go to the back and look every night, but I can't say that there's anything going on that says, we're here or anything like that. But I definitely now, because like I said, I had moved, I hadn't seen anything for a while. I would see the moon all the time or see something here or there, but not what I had saw before. And near the end of 2019, I started to see similar things and started to film, not on the same volume, the one here, one there. And it's not that I lost interest or anything, but I would, there was nothing majorly different about them. So I would go, and if I felt like I wanted to film, I would. If I didn't, I didn't. But it was sometime in the morning, I caught this thing in the morning one day, maybe that was around sometime in December. I haven't put that one up too. And it was this bright light, the sun and the moon, all of them out. I didn't have a wide enough camera to get them, but I only happened to see that because I let my grandson out the door. And I'm saying that to say, there have been times where I got up to go look and was, very pleasantly surprised to see something.
Yeah, but there's this thing where, I don't know, I recently realized that people don't see shooting stars that often. I have been seeing a shooting star like once a month since I was born. I'll get out of the car, even in the middle of the city. Doesn't matter. I used to live in New York City. I used to live in London. It doesn't matter where I would live. I would at least once a month, like if I was walking outside or if I was outside getting out of my car to go inside, I would look up and I would see a shooting star like that. And I thought that was just how everybody in the world was. I didn't realize, like, recently I've talked to, who was I with? I was with some friend, and we saw a shooting star, and they were so excited, like they had never seen one before or something. And I was like, yeah, it was cool. Yeah. Did you make
I'll tell you. I haven't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, but so what I was thinking is, like, for me, I think what I sort of started realizing is that, well, maybe even though I don't know it, I am compelled to look up at exactly the moment when a shooting star goes by,
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe there's something like that with you, where it's like, well, you let your grandson out, sure, but at the same time, it happened at that exact time,
that it was there. That's true. But I also forget sometimes that I started reading the Nag Hammadi, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, and the Book of Enoch is the thing that actually made me interested in stars, but not why I got the camera. And in the Book of Enoch, it talks about stars being punished for not being in their correct destination on time. And that really stayed with me, you know. Well, so, and I started looking up the word stars, and I could not find a point in time where we had called it something else. But I believe it must be, and I think star is a relatively new term for these lights. And I now certainly believe that these lights are commandeered by something, you know, and so I know people are looking for ships to be to have a different structure, you know, but not all of them, but a certain number of them on the documentary most certainly look like ships to me.
Yeah, you definitely had some like Star
Yeah.
Wars looking triangles. Like,
Yeah.
things
And
happening.
so you see that little, but those are not the ones that I think the Book of Enoch is talking about. Because I literally one day, and I did see this with my eyes, was looking in the view on the camera, and I see these two lights, a white one and a red one, really far off, but they're close together. And I did think it was some type of airplane. So I'm looking through the lens and they start moving closer. And the white one is chasing the red one. You know, I mean, literally chasing it around, and it would chase it, disappear, pop up really close next to it. The red one would move out of the way, disappear. It was like they were doing some kind of, I don't know if it was a game or if this star was in trouble for not being at its spot at the right time. And so I'm watching this, and I was shocked because normally, like I say, I see them and they're not moving, but these were not as high up in the sky as they normally are. And I have seen since then seen these red things. There's one that I call these things. It's where the green kind of green gold thing shoots by. And before it shoots by, there's a red one and a white one, and they're blinking. They do a kind of a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then that thing shoots by. So how or why I have gotten on their radar or they on my radar, I think that there's a passage where Jesus talks about, you know, the information he's giving is for people that have eyes that see and ears that hear. You know, somewhere along the line, I've developed eyes that see, you know, and I don't know if it's any, I know people would like it to be some type of message in it. I just don't think it is. I don't know why I'm seeing so many of these things. I
Well,
just don't have a clue.
big part of it is that you're open to it too.
Well, oh, without a doubt. And the like I said, the thing about Enoch really, it stayed with me for so long. And but I never had saw anything in between that. And then when I did the documentary, I used that as the opening because I felt it was so relevant, you know. And now I'm watching these things moving around, and some of them do look like they are in trouble. You know, like they should be, like there's something else going on with them. But then the stranger ones start to show up too, then, you know, the ones that just take shapes that there's just no. Did you see the thing at the end?
Of your documentary?
The very end, there's a one
Yeah, let me see what my impressions were.
Behind the credits, all the way at the end.
Okay.
At the very end,
Mhm.
there's just 5 still shots with dates on them, stamps. Have you looked at those? This is beyond the credits, after the credits, all the way at the end. Nobody has mentioned these, and I'm curious as to why.
Okay, yeah, so I'm looking at the strangest stills yet. So okay, you have which date here? Let's see. I have Ooh, that one looks like a egg with a.
Not that one. Keep going. The blue one and the white one that looks
Parting
like,
shot.
yeah. That's a still shot. That's me doing this, trying to shoot at something else, and that still shot showed up. What does that look like to you?
I mean, to me, that looks like, I think that looks like,
Look at the arm and the head.
yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like a person. It looks like and it almost like, yeah, I would say it looks like an angel or an astronaut or
It's something.
it's a being or something. Yeah, for sure.
So what about the blue one that looks like, I don't know, a bird or something?
Like a couple before that. Oh, the blue one to me looks like the blue shield.
That's a still shot, and I have it in 3 stages. It's where the first, I was actually filming something else where you could see the outline of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to flick the camera trying to get it. I don't know what I was trying to do.
That one almost like people would almost say orb. But
that looks like an orb to you with the beak and the things.
Well, no, I'm just saying like that is almost, but it's like, I could see the bird and the beak with it, but it still has like a round shape. Yeah, that almost looks like a phoenix.
I hadn't thought about that.
And then the other one, the purple one with almost like 2 lines that go, it almost looks like a purple orb with the 2 lines that go across it. I mean, I think we're dealing with, well, I kind of think we might be dealing with like elementals in some sense.
I don't know what that means.
Elementals are like, you have these things called like sylphs, which are, they're like kind of like dragon fairy lands, like stuff like during that. The sylphs were these like, they were these etheric fairies in a way of the sky that would control the clouds, and they would clean up the sky, and they were supposed to be really whimsical and look like clouds, but these, I mean, like that they kind of remind me of that energy in some way.
Okay.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, that doesn't mean that that's what they are, but yeah. Do you think that okay, I don't know if I'll put this part on exactly, but I'll just say, I have, within the last couple years, have started to have like a distrust of NASA and a distrust of what they tell us about what stars are in general.
Okay.
So I'm not saying they're not this or that, but when you really start looking into, yeah, and I'll cut this part out because people are going to think I'm too crazy for saying this. But yeah, part of me wonders if we're being lied to about a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I don't even know if it's lies so much as it is simply a group of people have determined that the people at large, the masses, just can't handle it. And if they think we can't handle it, then that means it's something deeper and more spiritual involved. And it has more to do with spiritual warfare than it has to do with anything.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of that stuff in the Bible that seems so far-fetched is true. So
let's talk about the Bible real quick. You've recently read, or you talked about the Pistis Sophia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a Gnostic gospel.
Yes.
So it's not actually in the Bible, but it was, they found it.
It's stuff that they took out of the Bible. The Bible is nothing other than a bunch of
books,
papers that somebody found, and there's 77 people that got together and decided what would go into what they call the canon. Mm-hmm. And they had a specific reason for putting what they put in there and what they left out. Because, you hear that they're in the beginning, they talk about Enoch walked with God and was no more. And for years, I thought that was all there was.
Right.
Then
Enoch's
you
supposed to be Noah's grandfather, right?
right. Was he Noah's grandfather? No, he's not Noah's grandfather. I think Noah was his grandfather, I think. I forget which one. But the whole idea is that then you find this other book with this whole story. You know, he's talking about the fallen angels, where they fell, what they did, which ones taught man what. I mean, there's a whole new path to go down. If you take the word Bible off of those books, off of those papers, and take religion totally off of it, and just think of it as information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to do that in order to get to the bottom of what's really being said there. But the bottom line is that they have no idea who wrote any of it, number one. And the fact that they call it the King James Version should let you know that it's something else was there. You know, why they decided to do that, they have a reason. You know, the people that are in charge here do not do things for nothing.
Exactly. I mean, and look up the Council of Trent, and there's definitely a misogynistic slant within the books that they have compiled versus like what was taken out. And also
the power of suggestion led us down that patriarchal thing where, you know, they put men way up here and women down there. And in fact, it's probably true that the thing that the entity that created us was unisex, both male and female. And they tried to suppress that. And you see what's happening as a result of that. You got pedophiles everywhere. You got the priests doing everything. You got, I don't know, they're trying to be God, I guess. They're trying to be God. They're trying to find him. They're trying to do everything. But they're telling you and I that we're too stupid to understand that, whatever it is, the whole thing that they're doing, you know. And but yeah, you have to, the more I started to look into things, the more information just started to come to me. I didn't know anything about the Nag Hammadi. I didn't know anything about the Pistis Sophia. I ran into a set of 200-year-old encyclopedias in a building that I lived in 90, and found out there that the Holy Trinity was thought up by 2-3 philosophers. You know, that's not in the Bible. So, you know, I think like it's always says that be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it, and you get the information, and of course it's not what you want. You want it to be some angelic, lovely thing, and this whole thing is just not that.
Right.
You know, it's a very ugly situation that this planet is in. So why? But it still doesn't explain why these. I don't know why I'm.
I just recently finished the Emerald Tablets by Thoth, which is apparently extremely old. I mean, it's where alchemy comes from. Yeah, and it's very short. It's like 80 pages. But
I hadn't seen it, haven't read it all the way through. I've looked into it, but I've not finished it. Yeah. And
then that's got me on a whole, like I tried to buy the Book of Enoch last night, but I kept on running into this. There's different people who wrote it, and I'm kind of like going, no, I just want a translation. I don't need any, you know, like there would be like what was one called, The Watchers, the Nephilim, and it's like I don't know. So basically I haven't figured out what's the best version to buy. I'm starting to read all the reviews and getting confused mixed messages. So
you can get it for free. Just get the Nag Hammadi. Or even if you go online, the Gutenberg, is it? Where they have all the free literature that's old, you can get it there. But if you put in the Book of Enoch, what is this thing that I look, and just put PDF after it. Okay. Then you can get the free version of it. I mean, it's all the same. It doesn't matter. What's happened is that they are in the domain, the public domain. So people are making copies of it and giving them different names on the cover. But generally, when you pull them out, they're the same, you know. But he goes very deeply. You know, the angels take him up there, and they explain a lot to him, and it's there, I don't even believe, at this point, who we thought, the God that we thought that created us is probably not that, not who did it.
Well, I also heard him be described as a giant. They were saying that Enoch himself might have been a giant.
It didn't say anything about that in the book that he wrote. He was just a guy, and he was a very righteous guy, and he was very obviously very learned in the spiritual aspect of it, and he was trusted, and they took him to Disneyland.
Right.
They took him on a trip that that blew his mind, so, but yeah, you just have to read this information as information. I no longer, and I think the thing that freed me up for that is when I finally realized that they had all these names that they put on the Bible, John and Ezra and all of that stuff. They have no clue who wrote these things. They just started sticking names on them, and I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with people.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I looked really heavily into. I was a art history was my thing I studied, and yeah, basically you learned like the compilation of a lot of books, or how some of these things started, or who was the first person. Looked a lot into like medieval art and monks and scribing things, and and you after you really start looking on how these things are compiled, it makes you always have to question the agenda.
I always have to question the agenda. Why do you want to suppress this information? What's so secretive of it? What's about to happen, or what do they think is going to happen? What are they preparing for? Because they're preparing for something, and it's escalated because they're trying to get off of this planet and onto Mars very soon. And I don't think they're planning to take you or me. And so you think, well, what is that all about? Because if they get up there and we're all still here and you can't communicate with, what's the point? Why is this rush to get off of this planet, or to get, it's as if they think it's about to be destroyed.
I just saw they're putting they called it a sperm bank on the moon. And I was like, what? And I read into it more, and they're calling it a Noah's Ark of all the, they're putting all kinds of eggs and sperm of all kinds of species, including humans and including everything on the planet that they can find. And they're going to have a storage center and in some lava tunnels in the moon. I'm going like, yeah, sure. Like, we haven't been back there in 50 years. We haven't actually set humans' feet back there in 50 years. So, I'll believe it when I see it. I also find that a bizarre, or unless you believe that we actually are going there and just not talking about it. There's that scenario, or there's a scenario that we've never been, or there's whatever the scenario is, something's fishy about that whole thing. But
yeah, it's a fishy hole. The whole thing is fishy. But they've got it so down pat that they're not really concerned with you or I. Maybe in the 50s, you and I could have gotten in big trouble talking like this. But they're so far advanced with whatever the plan is that what we're talking about is nothing anymore. It's just nothing. I mean, half of this crap, they make movies about it. And 10 years later, you'll realize that half of the stuff in the movie was true. And you thought it was just science fiction or some kind of fiction. There is no such thing as fiction.
Well, I also have this thing where, if it's a metal triangle craft or a tic-tac UFO or whatever, I'm at a point where I believe that is human technology that's advanced. Now, if it's an intelligent light craft, which is like what me and you were talking, I think that's something different. And for me, that's why I find those things way more interesting.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about it. You know, they rerouted for some reason, you know, for them to, at least for, as far as I'm concerned, even the red orbs, for them to be there at that time of the night, hanging there as if it was perfectly normal, as if they had done that a bunch of times and they didn't shoot any beams at me or my son. You know, they just were there lined up perfectly, not making a sound. And there were trees taller, higher up than these things. And then my son and I decide, okay, you know, we sit down and 15, 20 minutes later, he calls me and they were way, way, way high up in the sky now. And now there's 5 of them.
Oh, well,
And
so
they,
you went inside before they were gone.
oh yeah, are you kidding? Because it was bizarre,
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't have a camera and they were too close and I didn't know what they were. And if they were going to kill us, I didn't, you know, it just didn't know.
Right.
You know, and so I sat down and he went back there and then he calls me back. He said, they're back here. They're back here. And I wish I had stayed. I would have loved to have seen them, you know, shoot away one by one. I would have loved to have seen that.
Now, does your son, the one who saw the UFO with you, does he ever, like he was the one who bought you, is he the same one that bought you the camera? Is he into
Bought
this?
me the camera. No, he looks at things that I have videoed, and of course we saw that, and I was telling someone else again too. This year, I believe this year was the first time we actually spoke about it in depth, about the red orbs, you know, because he's spiritual too, but he's spiritual on a different level in the sense that he has decided everything for him is in God's hands and he just doesn't care what else is going on because he says, well, whatever it is, God's going to handle it. I'm just going to step out of the way because I can't explain this stuff. And I'm more curious, that's all, you know, and I guess my curiosity pulled a lot of stuff in. I had seen people on YouTube with pictures of these orange orbs. Didn't believe it. You know, thought, what the heck are they? Nobody's going to believe that. And then I walk out on my porch and there's 4 of them.
So is that the time you felt watched?
No, that was in 2016. I didn't get the camera till near the end. I didn't feel like I was being watched to somewhere, maybe that might have been around September or October of 2017, where I looked out and there were maybe 12 of them out there. And it was the bigger one. The other ones, it was still just looking like a big light, a star light, but it was closer. Mm-hmm. And I was just filming away. And I felt suddenly like something was watching me. I really felt that so strongly.
And a negative, like a uncomfortable being watched?
No, it was only uncomfortable for me because I hadn't experienced it. But that was not the one. The one, I think that's number 16, that goes from looking like some kind of ray gun into that sitting kind of position where it ultimately ends up as a face, kind of a face.
Okay.
That one's the only one that's scared me. And it scared me because I filmed it and then I thought it was gone. And then I realized it was still there.
Number 16, you say?
I believe it's 16.
Okay, let me give you my notes on number 16. I thought it looked like armor, a spiral. Then it turns into a dancer in the wind looking back. And then it's pulling on the reins hard. Like it looked like.
Yeah. Oh, God, you got that.
And then I said, ooh, and then it looks like a compass. Then it looks like a mermaid in a hula hoop. A leaping person, and I had a lot of notes on this one. Have mouth face up with it open, and then Jupiter fading planet. And I said, I don't like the ending image of this one.
Oh,
That's weird.
see,
I wrote
that
that.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the one that, when I was looking, and I pulled back a minute, and it was so bizarre, and it was certainly not what it started out to be, and I didn't know if it I didn't feel like it personally was trying to intimidate me, but it scared me. I hadn't seen one look like that, or change into any kind of face,
Yeah. I really liked the daytime one, the 19, and I said that one looked like a diamond, like a shiny
Mhm.
bubble, and then an angel doing a swan dive.
Yes, that
um,
was a beautiful, beautiful morning for that one. That is the one that shows up behind the tree around 4 or 5:30 in the morning. And this tree was across the street from my house. The same tree where the orb was in between. It's like a building, a vacant lot, and this tree is sitting in front of a building and then another house.
mm,
And so the orb was in between the two buildings, but closer to the tree. Oh, this is a very, very tall tree. And it would show up behind there. And by maybe by maybe about a half an hour, it seemed like it would take it to move all the way across. And then it would be in a space where I could actually see it clear because it would be behind the branches, or sometimes across the top of it. Very close and very bright, just very bright. And it did so many different things, it took so many different shapes, but it was mostly the clear white bright ones were the ones that were really just so beautiful. They were just so beautiful.
well, I want you to continue filming them. I sent you the name of that documentary, the Capturing the Light.
Oh, I've watched it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched it years ago or some time ago, I think, and I didn't think much of it. And after all of this recently, somebody else told me I needed to watch it. And I thought, had I watched that before? And I watched it this time totally with two different eyes, of course, and am amazed at the similarities
Hmm.
and the whole idea that they're showing up. And she was probably around my age too
Yeah. And
when
she
she
filmed them
started
for the
seeing
rest of her
them.
life until she
Yeah,
passed away. She
yeah,
filmed them all the time.
yeah.
Um, and that was when you had it looked like she was using VHS, like,
Mm,
this, I don't remember what
yeah,
years ago,
yeah.
um but I guess the difference
Well,
between
the
the
one
two.
where the inner.
Oh, sorry.
Mm.
I was gonna say that I think the difference
No,
is
no, go ahead.
she felt calling, like she knew they were gonna come.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. But she said they were talking to her too, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a while since I watched the documentary, but I know that her children didn't believe her, or they thought it was like kind of whatever. And then eventually she got just so much evidence and started pacing this stuff together and trying to
Mhm.
come up with all this footage. And some people started taking note that they finally started going like, okay, maybe she's not crazy. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's weird that you could have something on film and people would think, I don't even know, that you're nuts. That's crazy, right?
yeah.
It's not like she was trying to tell anybody about it. She literally had, I mean, like the red things, the orbs. When I tried to tell my sister about them, I could hear all kind of, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Then 3 months later, she saw one,
Mhm.
but she still did not seem moved by it. And capturing the light, the lady's son made a very he made a point, and he was telling the interviewer that, yeah, he saw the thing behind, because at one point they were interviewing her daughter and she was in a window and something starts to show up in the sky, and they're filming it. The daughter doesn't even know it's there. And everybody, they come back and play it for them, and everybody's just in awe of it. But her son says, yeah, I see it. I don't know what it is. And I can guarantee you in a couple of days, I'll forget all about it. It won't mean a thing to me.
Yep. And that's probably what happened. That's so crazy. Well, you know, I went to Egypt in
Wow.
October of 19. It was awesome. But I have a sibling who was like, you know, me and my mom went to Egypt. We were telling about him about it and everything. And he was like, okay, well, I watched a PBS documentary that showed how they made them. Like, we made them. Like, it was like a bunch of slaves that you know, they had pulleys. They have ropes and pulleys. Like, I'm going, like, okay, did you not listen to the entire hour I talked about like how big these were and what this was, and I broke down the math for him, like how many tons this was, how many people would have to be on a pulley, had to do that. I mean, and it's just like, I don't see what the big deal is. Like, yeah, the pharaohs did that for their tombs. Like,
you know, maybe we are. It's weird to think that there are so few people like you or me on the planet. It's just weird but my family is the same way. You know, I have this thing that happens with my eye. When I start to think about something really deeply, or especially if it's spiritual, I can see some type of white light that comes out of my eye. I could see the reflection in my glasses, you know. And I was trying to express that to my sister some years ago. And I think I was beginning to realize then that you either believe it yourself or you don't. You know, there's very few people you can tell something like that to, and they not think you're cuckoo. You know, what could be rolling around in your eye? I don't know. I don't know why.
Mine is my left eye. When I close it at least once a day, I see a like blue spiral on the bottom left.
Yeah, I've seen that too. You know, and so I don't know what that is. I don't know. Do you have trauma in your life?
Like, my dad was an alcoholic, so like I have had, like, you know, my parents had a bunch of fights and it was a very volatile household, but no, I've never really had any sexual violence or any.
You know, that someone was saying that the people with a lot of trauma tend to have been living out of their bodies.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Long, you know, that they have maybe had these experiences all the time, but they didn't, like, I've never thought of them as anything other than just the way my life was.
Right.
You know, so I'm not sure. I don't know, you know, I don't know what's happening. I really don't.
Well, I mean, I think there is a whole wave of, I don't know if you've heard the spiritual community people talk about how there's definitely some kind of awakening happening amongst people, and people are starting to, and by awakening, that doesn't mean like whatever they've politicized that to mean.
Right.
Like, what awakening means more is like, okay, I'm an immortal spiritual being having a physical experience, and we're all part of something greater than this.
Right.
And there's almost like, a lot of people talk about how there's some sort of, maybe it's the Christ of consciousness, or maybe it's some kind of higher consciousness that's starting to wake some of us up to kind of go like, question what we're doing in, like, why are we doing this? Like, what is this all about? Like, self-examine ourselves, learn ourselves, you know. That I definitely think is happening. And it's weird because I think it's happening you have to find your tribe, right? Like I you know, I mean, but I don't even have to worry about saying you know, my siblings aren't going to even watch this. They would never watch this. So, I mean, you know, like, so it's, I don't even have to say, but like, there's a lot of people in my family where, yeah, this is not going to be, something that they'll even have eyes to hear or ears to hear, eyes to see or ears to hear. This is, so I don't know. I don't know what's happening, but I do think there is a level of people who are starting to go like, you know, hey, it's magical being alive and something's happening. And
oh yeah, I think we take a lot. I think a lot of people take a lot of things for granted. I mean, I'm like, I don't understand why people don't get that in the center of their eyeball, there's this hole. That's a hole. And something is looking out of that hole. And I've tried to say that to people, and they says, yeah, well, so what? I don't know why that's not a big deal to everybody.
yeah, no, it's there's something's viewing through you. Like
Yeah.
you're connected to a collective consciousness in a way. For me, how I got right open was I never had done these kind of drugs before ever, but I did mushrooms. I did a ton of magic mushrooms in the redwood forest when I was 35. I'm 38 now. I'm almost 39.
Wow, you don't look any of that, but go ahead.
Thank you. And yeah, I went back to the source energy of everything, and it wasn't a place, and it wasn't a human. It wasn't like, see, for me, when you say the word God, it sounds like a person,
right?
And this was more like an electricity. It was more like it was like a substance, an all-knowing fluid substance that we're all part of. And I don't know that this is true, but this was just my interpretation, or the fragmentation that I brought back when I came back awake, was that, and I just wanted to see pretty colors. Like, I wasn't even about this. I didn't know this was going to happen to me. Like, I didn't even know I was a human. I didn't know I was alive. I didn't know I was Nikki, nothing. Anyway, when I finally, it took me a while to get oriented back into my body, but I realized at that point in time that we're all basically the existence, or so the source energy, the Godhead, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. It's always existed, and it always will exist. Like, time is not real. Like, this is some sort of different expression, because I felt like I was there thousands of years, way longer than I've been here. Anyway, even though it was just 4 hours, what I felt like was that it even doesn't know the why of why it exists. It knows it always has, it knows it always will, but it doesn't know the why. And so it fragmented itself into infinite possibilities in order for us all to give, like, almost like a feedback mirror loop. Like, we're all sort of like feeding information back to the source of everything, so it can kind of help figure itself out. Or at least that's what I felt
when you did. Yeah.
I don't know how true that is or what that means, but it just sort of made me kind of go like, all right, so that's kind of like what we're doing here. But it did also really make me, that whole, when people talk about, like, oh, the oneness of everything, and it also, like, if you're hurting somebody else, you really are hurting yourself. And I think that's because we really do have the same consciousness flowing between us.
Well, if you read the Pistis Sophia from the beginning to the end, your outlook on that might change a little bit. It's just my personal experience with it, because you cannot ignore evil. You can't ignore these things, that are going on. You don't have to, but for me, I need an answer for that, because this one source and everything emanates from it. Well, then everything emanates from it. So you can't say just the light emanates from it and the good. It's this other very ugly stuff too is there. All of that's there. So the answer, like I said, often is not, of course, when I started digging, I'm looking for this beautiful aura thing to happen too. And then here comes all this other stuff where you have to face it. And I think that's where a lot of people have decided, you know what, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to shop, I'm going to have a party, I'm going to have a beer. I'm not going to deal with this.
I recently had an interview with a guy, I posted it today, and he talked about how, like, basically, when you're in a human form, we're in the middle, like we're in the middle of, you know, there's like light, there's like the good, the light, the good energy. And then there's like, there's darker energy than we've ever seen. When you're in a human, you're kind of in this medium phase, but it was almost like when you're in the light, you can't work with your darkest self, or you can't work with, like, you can't heal the darkest stuff, because as soon as you would get close to it, you would light it up. Like it doesn't,
that's interesting.
You know, and so you're saying what the gift of being here is that we need to work on clearing down here, because when you're up here, you can't clear down here.
So why though? Why would we be created for that purpose?
I don't know. What really bothers me the most about being incarnated as a human right now is the forgetting, like not remembering the before or the after.
Right.
You know, it's like you come in like a naked baby with zero tools.
And totally dependent on what could be creeps or could be the most wonderful two people ever.
Right. Like whatever family structure you're put in, whatever socioeconomical situation, whatever country you were born in, you know.
Yeah, that's a real shake them up and throw the dice. You know? So now, whether or not I have to think that because we have these thinking minds and this creativity and this ability to ask these questions, and often they are answered, rarely are they answered that you want, you know, there's something bigger, in my opinion, and more sinister going on. And I don't know if, I hear often that it's not my job to figure that out. And it's kind of like they said, my job is to stay in the light, like you're talking about, not to venture off into that, because that is well beyond my realm of understanding. The problem is there's all this information about it.
Yeah, but the other problem too for me is, like, how is it ever gonna resolve if it doesn't have light shown onto it, you know?
It's very interesting. I don't know, you know. I mean, if you take the Pistis Sophia to heart, there's some unfortunate stuff that's going to happen. You know, there are some souls, according to the Pistis Sophia, that are not going to be saved. They are too far down. They've gone too deep into the negative or the dark or whatever you want to call it, and they will be destroyed. That's a hard pill to take, because then you start trying to figure out, okay, where am I on that spectrum? Am I doing okay? And I think that's part and parcel of why I'm always trying to figure out stuff, because it's a weird thing, you know, that to think of your soul or yourself ceasing to exist in its entirety.
I for some reason, part of me like wonders if you know, because they always say like technically hell is separation from God. Like that's like one definition of the etymology of what hell actually means. But part of me also feels like, well, maybe I don't know. Sometimes I always still have hope for, I feel like even the dark, maybe we're all in cycles. Like if existence, if all this is infinite, like forever, I don't know if it is or isn't, but maybe you get to the, like, if you look at the infinity sign, right? Maybe you go all the way to the dark, and then you start to get bored of that, and you come back and you go all the way to the light, and you go, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it's possible, you know, absolutely anything is possible. You know, any explanation at this point is possible until it's proven not possible or not likely, you know. But it's
yeah, and it's just really hard because there's no surefire way to know 100
no surefire way. Well, you know, there's it's an interesting thing to me. When I started reading the Pistis Sophia, I was looking for something. I think we are often looking for something grand, some big grand answer. And then I began to realize that literally whatever is said there, that's exactly what it means. There is no other meaning behind it. You know, it is exactly what he is saying. And of course, I want to, there's names in there that there's just no explanation for, but I have to remember he wasn't talking to me, and those people that he's talking to, they know who he's talking about. And the stuff that he's talking about, because, Pistis Sophia is supposed to be Jesus talking, right? And so the things that he's talking about are simply that, So when I read the part where he said he's flipping the poles, he does it every so often, and he's doing it to save souls and to confuse our scientists and our astronomers, so that which way they were looking to do whatever they planned to do. When he flips the poles, the direction is in somewhere else, and they get all confused. He talks about our triangles and our squares and our all of that. And he says literally, point blank, nothing else to it. He does it to save souls, and he only has so much time to do it. And after a certain point, they will not be able to save any more souls.
Whoa, I need to read this right away then, because I like my very first YouTube is about, like, I had these 4 blue light ball beam things that came into my room when I was in India, like in 2017, and they basically telepathically showed me that the poles were gonna flip.
Oh, and yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I didn't really know what to do with it. I just sat on that, and then I started looking into the poles flipping kind of thing. And yeah, that's definitely my like the blue people, the little blue balls told me that they were trying to push it back to save enough people, but they could only do it for up to between 20 or 50 more years. And that was in 2017.
Yeah. So, well, that stayed with me too. It was one of those things I kept reading. I couldn't understand it. Flip the poles. How is he going to take the earth to this? And sure enough, last year before last or so, suddenly there started to be articles about this. And the question of a lot of times would be, are the poles flipping? We thought that it wouldn't happen for 75,000 years, and this, that, and the other, and the chaos and the problems that it would cause. And so now I'm beginning to think that's exactly what's happening, and I even think that's part of what climate change is.
Yeah.
Was that slow structure that takes that, and he doesn't say how many years it takes to do it.
Well, geologically, from my understanding, they have these things called the Milankovitch cycles, which are where who knows like how accurate these are or aren't, but they basically, especially in the Pacific Ocean, are able to where there's a lot of magma that's like hardened as it's happening, so they're able to almost show you core samplings of when it's north, south, north, south, and that within whenever the molten lava freezes, it freezes with its iron filings pointed to whichever direction the pole is. Well, the graph is very pumpkin tooth or castle top tooth. It's just like whenever it happens very suddenly, basically. The geological record, it doesn't happen like, it's not a sine wave thing.
Yeah.
It looks like it happens gradually. It looks like it happens like it's north, it's south, it's north, it's south. Like, yeah. So at least, but that geologically, that could be like over 100 years. That could be, we don't know, because we're talking about very long periods of time. So yeah, but still, even if it was over 100 years, that's.
Yeah, well, he doesn't give any timeline. He just says that he does it periodically. and the purpose that he does it. And I wanted to make more out of that, right? Okay, so he's flipping it and the souls, but the truth of the matter is he said what he said, and I would have to believe that he meant what he said. He flips the poles every so often because he wants to confuse the astronomers, the rulers of this planet, and the people that are of the equations. And he does it because he's saving souls. Point blank. And there was nothing else to make of that. And the reason I, of course, was trying to make more of it because I'm trying to find my place in there. You know, okay, am I going to be lost? Am I doing enough? And he even goes at the very end of it, after he's talking about Pistis Sophia, there's some very definite guidelines, some very definite who is and who isn't and why. And when you start reading that kind of stuff, you know, the thing that's supposed to happen to the souls that cannot be saved or return, because he says, first of all, our soul is not the same as his soul or other souls, that our souls come from the one that created us, which is what we often call the devil, you know. And so that is part and parcel why we are in the situation that we are in. That's a lot to take in. I could certainly understand why anybody putting together the Bible thought that that would not be good to put in, you know. And so they try to destroy all of these things, but every so often somebody finds one and keeps it, and it resurfaces, you know. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's enough to make anybody say, forget it. I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want because, you know, you know. So it's very interesting. It's in between that, Enoch, and these things showing up. You know, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I definitely think you should continue to film the things.
I am. I do.
Yeah.
Whenever I go back there and I see one, I come get my camera and go sit down and see what it's about.
I don't know. I feel like you should be able to ask for messages from them, or ask to, you know, like.
I probably could. I just haven't, you know, initially that just was not my
goal.
You know, yeah, you know, and the more I talk with people and the more, but I just don't want to get into any place where I start trying to do what people
channeling or
yeah, you know, what they want to happen. I think it's time goes on. I don't even feel like I want to start asking, who are you? Because I'm not ready to know. You know, I'm not ready to know. So whenever that time comes, or if I feel comfortable talking to it or towards it or something, then I guess I probably will, you know. But at this point,
yeah, I think
like the one that keeps showing up.
I think one advice I would give for that though is just don't, I don't know, like don't be scared. And also the thing is, even if you're if you're dealing with like a demon or like a bad alien or like vampires or whatever, you can't, like, first of all, there are worse things than death, but the other thing is that nothing can possess you unless you give it permission to. So I would never invite anything to take over my body or to be in my body or whatever. But like, if it wants to communicate with me as I'm communicating with you, or if we want to have an exchange of information, cool. So
well, I don't think I know enough about, I need to be able to separate what's what, you know. And so at this point, there's so many, they're so different. You know, if it was just one thing, I would be more comfortable with that, you know, but there's so many, they're so different. And like the one now that's showing up, if it is the thing that hangs around the moon, it was not friendly. You know, it just was not angry, but it was not friendly.
And it's like that one you said, the number 16, that even I wrote, like, I do not like the ending of this one.
Yeah.
Like, there was something,
there was something very sinister about that, especially the way it started out. It started out as just this one thing, and it was really interesting, and it changed into something else that was still really interesting. And it ends up this face and like a rock. I mean, it went through so many changes just to change into that, and then to move in close to me, like, you know, it was really almost like, and then disappeared, you know. So like I say, that was enough to let me know that everything floating around out here is not like the light that I saw, like the beam of light. And that was not one of the brighter stars, which is something I had to start thinking about, that some of the lights are really, really bright and some of them aren't. And that was one of the ones that was not particularly bright. It was very hard for me to pick it up, but then it did. I hadn't thought about that. So, you know, and it was different is what I guess I'm getting at. It was different from some of the other ones. I had not thought about that.
So you have a YouTube channel where you're putting them on individually as they come?
Yeah, I had started doing that. That is so time consuming. My original goal was to do a part 3 and a part 4, just as a documentary, and put them all together. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's a lot more time consuming. I still would put some of the longer ones up on YouTube that would just take too much space in a documentary that'd be 30 hours long.
Right.
So yeah, I do. It's what is the name of? Oh my God, I haven't been on there in a couple of days. It's I forget. I had 2. I had the Front Porch Astronaut. I think it actually is under Black People Do See UFOs. On YouTube. I'll shoot it to you. So
okay,
you can
cool.
See
yeah, so I can, I'll tag it underneath here. Yeah, so like, let's just, how can people find you? So they can find you on?
Twitter and YouTube, and that's it. You know, I've got other ones, Instagram and all of that, but I'm not really, and I don't like Facebook. I hate Facebook.
Yeah,
you know, so primarily I'm on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very active community, and they're very engaged and very supportive. And so I kind of hang out there the most.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's where I actually found you. I found you on Twitter.
Now, did you saw the interview first and then, or how did you?
Yeah, I saw on YouTube, I saw that UFO on the Level. He posted his interview, and I happened to click on it, and I got really fascinated by it. And then I went and watched, I went to your website and watched the documentary from there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I watched it twice, and I was like, this is so fascinating.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm really glad. I'm glad you contacted me.
Yeah, it's really special. I think it's really something special, and I really, I want to encourage you to keep doing it. And I don't know what doors it's going to open for you, but I feel like it's going to open some doors.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope we talk again. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, for sure. All right, Miss Patricia, it's been a really good time. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome, Nikki. Thank you very much for having me.